Gladrap Studios, Isaac Savage, here with economist, avid motorcyclist and writer, and even was famously quoted for saying he'd give away $50 million. Gareth Morgan, welcome to the Gladrap Studios.
Thanks very much, Isaac.
How are you today, and how was the trip up from Tauranga?
Well, it is 3 degrees hotter in Auckland, so it's sort of a bit of a deflation coming up, but who can moan at this?
Exactly. Recently named the 4th largest city now in New Zealand, or would it be the 5th, just taking over Dunedin?
5th, yeah, 5th's going gangbusters. So all those swamps out in Papamoa that they filled up with pensioners a few years ago, they're now expanding beyond that, and I think the city will reach Te Puke before you blink. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's growing rapidly. Now, you have an extensive history in New Zealand, you've got loads of stories, but where did it all begin for you, and what's brought you to where you are today?
Oh yeah, so how long you got? But, well, I started way back 75. I started work, Reserve Bank. I learned a lot there about how the economy works, all that sort of stuff. That's good experience, and then I got sort of caught up. I set up an economic consultancy called Infometrics, and that was a lot of fun. So I was in the public eye pretty early in my working life, and when we had the Muldoon crisis, which was probably before you were born, Isaac, I'm not sure, but I haven't done that maths, but I was on TV all the time analysing what the constitutional crisis would mean for the economy and for people's lives, and what the effects of the Douglas regime would do. So, I have been around a hell of a long time. I'm sort of gobsmacked, actually. Still going. I'm only 60, just about turned 64. So this is it for me this year. This is the whole sort of period of working on the economy and society, public interest type stuff. I thought, well, I know it all now. Put enough time into it, so now I'll take it to the people in New Zealand and see if they're up for a bit of progress or they just want to sit back with the status quo. You mentioned Muldoon. Was he responsible for the Kenliff Mill, or out in which was now called OG Fibre Solutions, the Kenliff Mill out in Tonga? Just trying to remember where it is. Kinleith. Yeah, was he responsible for building that, or was that before his time? No. Okay. That was before him.
Okay.
So yeah, I used to work in that forest.
Do we need more industries or projects like that here in New Zealand?
No, we need less.
Less.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The trouble with that particular type of plant is they're huge energy users, huge emissions makers, and so their time really is over.
True.
For that sort of stuff. So, yeah. No, that's not the sort of
that's the thing we should
economy.
be steering
I think, we've got to price them out really, and price in. What's happened in New Zealand the last number of years is far more self-employed people, start-up type people, small businesses, and at all levels, in terms of just from the corner dairy all the way up to really high-tech, internationalised sort of businesses, and that stuff's really exciting. Low barriers to entry, but you do need an education. Now that's an issue, because a lot of people don't get a fair suck of the sap when it comes to education.
Yeah, it's quite unfortunately, stats-wise in New Zealand, we, even though we're a first world country, we're not probably rated as high as we should be. But where does the change for that even start? Does it start from policies such as companies or parties like yourself want to start, or how do we change that?
Well, the education thing is we've got to get more kids coming out the end of their education, all fired up, all equipped, ready to go. And all the work we've done, we're not far off publishing a book on education actually. This is back in Morgan Foundation. But all that work tells us that where the real hole is early childhood education. So what's happened there is that, as opposed to my day where a lot of us were sort of one income families, we're all two income families now. We still have babies, but of course put the babies into childcare. So if you've got two lower incomes, and you're working whatever, 2, 3, 4 jobs, and your child, your preschooler, is in childcare, the quality of the childcare, I'm afraid, is crap. And so they don't get the sort of preschool education that they should have, so they arrive at school already 2 years behind those of us who do get that. And they never ever make that up. That's what the data's telling us. And it just gives us a cycle of poverty, no labour mobility at all, they don't go up through the income scales. And so that's where we have to invest. Now, we've got a government, and a number of governments now, where most of the investments has gone near the end of life, my generation. Baby boomers, 50 and up. So to get them to invest in preschool to both address that education deficit plus poverty, actually, that's what we're trying to do, but this is not easy.
Well, that's what I'm talking about before. A lot of generations, like you said, and even 5 or 10 years younger than me, don't vote. And you were talking about the policies that you might have in place for an older demographic.
Yeah.
And we're jumping straight into it, but some of the policies that you might have and implement, you will need that 5% of the population to get through, and it's about reaching that demographic, and that's going to be a bit of a challenge in itself. Isn't it?
If I don't get young people to come out and vote for us, we're stuffed, basically, because that's the demographic that I'm working for. Because too much of the cake now is being eaten by my generation. So whether it's property ownership, for younger people all that means is high rent that reduces the amount of income you've got to spend. Whether it's New Zealand Super, taking a large chunk, biggest benefit on the block is New Zealand Super. I'm about to get around that myself. We're not far off getting 40 grand a year. It's disgusting.
It's super and
That's disgusting.
Will you give that away as well, or?
Well, I'm criticising the system though. What the hell is that about? That's the biggest benefit on the block, and most of the people don't even need it. So as long as you're going to throw money down the toilet like that, of course there's not going to be enough money from the tax base for poverty and for the young folks. So we need to rebalance. Now, the interesting thing about this is it's not just a New Zealand phenomenon, it's actually around the world. And so you have, as a result of this amazing voter disenfranchisement of the younger voters. So, overall New Zealand's vote peaked at the time they threw Muldoon out, so 90% turnout for the poll. We're down
90?
To 90, yeah. That's the highest it's ever been. That's how unpopular he became. And it's now down to 70 something. But my guys, my age, we're all up at about 80 something. The under 30s are down to 40.
But how will you get those ones across the line, the demographics such as myself or those younger? What policies, or you're almost going to have to be quite radical with some of your policies to get them across the line.
Our flagship policy, which is to plug the loophole in the income tax regime so that owners of capital like me have to pay tax on all the income that comes from that capital. That's going to hit property owners, right? So if you've got $1 million house, you'd end up paying 15 grand a year. If you've got it fully owned, full equity, no debt, so that's the bad news.
For capital gains tax.
Not capital gains, it's an income tax. So it's every year.
So if they've got full equity in the house, or if they've got any
full
equity?
Yeah, you get it. You get taxed on your equity.
On your percentage of equity?
Yeah, so it's 1.5%. Sure. Whatever your equity is. So say you've got $1 million in property, so you get taxed 15,000. So that's the bad news. Right?
Bad news for homeowners?
Well, for those capital owners, yeah. It's not just homes. Here's the good news.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, you're good. That reduces, with that, we can reduce tax by a third.
1/3, 3.3%.
No, 1/3. So whatever your tax bill is now would go down by 30%.
Okay.
That's a lot.
It is.
So of course, depending on where you skew that, if you did it across the board, or do you drop the tax even more on the lower incomes? That's what I would favour. So what that policy will do is it will stop house price inflation, it'll stop it dead, and it'll boost incomes, after tax incomes, and by stopping house price inflation that you allow incomes to catch up. See, when we bought our first house, the average house was 3 times the average income. It's now 8 times.
Yeah, that's what I was going to touch on as well.
We have to bring that back.
So in terms of the when you bought a house, whenever that may have been,
75.
What was the LVR at? And like you just said, it was 3 times per income. But what was the LVR? How much did you have to put down to deposit or secure that house?
Well, it was even in those days. I'm trying to think. I think you had to have a third. Remember? So 2/3 debt. You weren't allowed over that. You weren't allowed more than 60% debt. Or 66.
So going back to this policy, what about capital gains tax for all those national supporters that love having no capital gains tax?
But you don't need it if you're paying your tax year in, year out on your property. You don't need capital gains tax. You're paying it annually.
I see. So that will just be abolished. No, but they'll be abolished, right? There'll be no more capital gains tax.
There is no capital gains tax, except if you're a trader at the moment. If you're in the business of buying and selling, that's how you make your earning. Yeah, well, you wouldn't need it under this, because you're just paying, 1.5% of the value of the house every year anyway.
And a lot of most of the people that you talk to about this policy, are they all for it? They think it's a great idea in terms of
because they realise that house prices are getting beyond everybody, and it's not just house prices; it's rent. If you take people's after rent take-home pay, it's plunging for those people. So we're just, the inequality in this country is going mad. So I'm worried that my grandchildren won't even be able to afford the rent, let alone buy a house. So this is a huge intergenerational change I'm making. I need young people to support me.
Well, that could be a start.
Because the oldies aren't going to.
There are all sorts of policies, but is there anything else out there that is quite radical that's really going to say, hey, did you hear about Gareth Morgan? A group of guys sitting in a cafe, out for dinner one night, that demographic of 25 to 35, 40. Hey, did you see what Gareth Morgan said in the news the other day? There are some other policies out there. I mean, what are your thoughts on, the America at the moment have legalised marijuana? Do you think that should be done in New Zealand?
Well, okay, so it's funny you should bring that up, actually, because we sat down and we thought, how do we get these young guys out of bed in the morning so that they will vote? I know what we'll do. We'll take a poll of young people and see what the most important issue for them is. So we did this. You know what it was? Head and shoulders above everything else.
You tell me.
Cannabis law reform. Now, come on. Talk about a first world problem.
True.
It's pathetic. But if that's what spins their wheels, and that's what's going to get them out, then we will have a policy on
legalising recreational medicinal.
So we're just about to launch that now. We've got this whole program we call deliberative democracy, which means direct democracy. So all the top members will have the chance now to have an input into whatever policy we come up with on cannabis.
Yeah.
So, because I haven't formed a policy on it, because I know all about it. Apart from the fact, I think it does damage to people if they're too young, their brain's not developed, but over a certain age it's pretty well harmless. So I look at that as an economist and say, well, how would I deal with that? I'd have a minimum age, wouldn't I?
Well, you'd agree, right, stats-wise, and this is just throwing it out there, after a weekend, when people go to courts or whatever, get in trouble over the weekend, most incidents or assaults are alcohol-induced.
Totally.
Yeah, marijuana, look, it's obviously it's still
I agree with that entirely.
It's still a drug, but it has probably less harmful effects on society.
I agree with
and
that.
the taxpayers' money opposed to what alcohol, which is a free-flowing drug.
And it's actually worse than that, because in New Zealand, up until very recently, we have been giving people criminal records and even jailing them for marijuana use that in, say, UK is a misdemeanour. So,
exactly.
We've taken a terrible approach to this. So we will have a policy on it. I just need to go through this process with this membership to see what...
Well, that's good to hear, and that could be a bit of a head turner for some of the younger voters.
Totally. But I really do want the young people to think a bit more deeply than just marijuana. I mean, they have to wake up and realise how much of their future has been mortgaged by my generation. And it's happening more and more. I mean, Vivian Peters, came up with that gold card. You know what that is?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, and people say, oh, isn't that a lovely thing to do? Hang on a minute. That turkey's not paying for this, you're paying for it. Right? So he's using taxpayer money to give me a free trip on the bus. I don't need a bloody free trip on the bus,
True.
right? Especially when I've got a daughter-in-law with kids who can't afford to take her kids on the bus.
Yeah.
What are we doing, you know? This sort of pork-barreling bloody politician needs to be flushed.
From what you're saying though, this gold card and the policies you have, are you almost, you don't want these voters? That 65, 60, are you going to put policies in for them, or are they not part of the program?
I will get voters there out of that cohort, but I'll only get the voters who care about the whole of New Zealand rather than you know, just themselves. Those who haven't got their, you know, born with their heads in the trough and still got it in the trough. Those are the, and it's, you'll be surprised when I talk to my own cohort. There's a lot of them like that. They say, this is nuts what we're doing.
You mentioned Winston Peters, you know, a very brash, pretty stubborn, one-sided man for that, I guess, group of people. There is a bit of, I guess, rivalry between you and him. Is it just purely because of the policies, not personalities?
Oh yeah, no, it's not personality, but I just don't like pork-barreling politicians that bribe sectors of the electorate to get their popularity and then flush their principles down the dunny if there's more votes to, you know, involved in having different principles, which is what he's done with the Treaty of Waitangi. So I think, you know, to me, he's a political lowlife.
He's got a very strong hold up in certain regions of New Zealand. It's quite scary how he's been quite close to 2IC many a times, right?
I think of Peters basically as New Zealand's Trump.
Well, I was verging on that, and you said it.
He appeals to that white nationalist movement that Tom Brash is into. You know, those two should have formed their own party, called it ACT, and they would have gone really well.
Now, speaking of Trump, he just hung up on Turnbull. He blindsided the elections in America, whereas one side of the media was saying that he wasn't going to win, and then all of a sudden that night he won. Where were you when it happened, and what are your thoughts?
Where was I when that happened? I'm trying to remember. I think I was in Borneo actually, chasing orangutans. I think I was.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, the day he nominated, the day he said he was going to seek the Republican nomination, so day one of this, my wife said he'll win, and you know he'll win. I said, don't say bloody ridiculous, the guy's a moron. You know, she said, that's irrelevant. You know as well as I, you know, you've spent a lot of time in the southern states of America, Appalachia, all that. You know exactly how those people think. You know, they are petrified. They're petrified because they've lost their jobs. They're petrified of the foreign threat. They're petrified after 9/11 and America declared war on terrorism. Now, you know, so many years later, it's pretty clear that they've lost that war. There's no way America's winning anything in the Middle East. It's getting worse with the terrorism spreading through Europe and that. So what Trump represents to me, so I'm just trying to describe to you the Trump voter at the moment, not Trump himself. But what he capitalised on was American fear. Fear of all those things. And America's basically taking a view with the world has. We can't dictate to the world that we want a democracy here and, you know, in the middle of Africa and another one over here. That's just not going to happen. So we are going to build a wall around America. And the rest of the world can take a leap. We're going to just look after ourselves. And that is what Trump represents. Now, in terms of Trump the person, it's pretty yuck, as we all know. You know, truth just isn't part of his vocabulary. And my favourite quote was from Trump was that one, I've got words. I've got some of the best words. I'm like, is this guy for real? Jesus, it's like a kindergarten, you know, but they love that stuff from him. So he connects and he brings out all the worst and capitalises on fear. That's, don't you know, a New Zealand politician who does that same sort of thing, albeit not quite so successfully?
Wow, he's gone now. Wow, he's...
No, well, I'm thinking of Peters, of course.
Yeah.
That's what Peters works on. So that's why I've had a go at him, right, because he worries me, because there are so many people out there who are into dogma, where evidence and truth doesn't matter, and they will flock to him.
He is similar to, I guess, a minion of Trump, but Trump's sort of like the big pit bull, and he's kind of like the chihuahua on the side.
Oh, totally.
Totally.
I'm not. Yeah, there's a lot.
He would. I don't think he would ever get into a position of power.
Yes, he would. He could easily hold a balanced power.
Are you talking about winning?
Totally. Yeah.
Well, he's been close.
But there's a reason why he is a coalition partner of last resort. There was a reason for that. Because he's just not trustworthy. Go and talk to the head of Labour or the head of National. Well, he is not trustworthy.
Exactly, you're right. But he plays the game, doesn't he?
Well, I don't like that game.
No.
And I think New Zealand voters are better than that. And they need to flush him.
Well, I think what Trump represents too, though, is a change or a flaw in the system. And he obviously got through to the college vote. More voters were in favour of Hillary, but college vote allowed him to go through. But there's no one else out there at the moment that's bringing policies forward like you. So you've got the Greens, they're there, Labour, etc. But none of them really stand out. So it's almost a bit of fresh air you coming along.
Yeah, well, that's what we're trying to do with these top 7, right? I'm only interested in policy. I have no interest beyond that. So when people criticise me or whatever for the way I might talk about something, it's like water off a duck's back. I mean, I say, well, yeah, but what about the evidence and what about the arguments? Can you stay on the topic? And some are struggling with that, but I think a lot are enjoying that. And there's a lot more of that stuff to come. We've got cool stuff coming in this education. Climate change we've got to do a policy on yet. We've done the environment one. I don't believe this. We did the environment one and the Greens said it's too radical.
But
did you hear that?
Yeah. The thing is,
it was too radical.
What I like about you, and this is trying to be unbiased as possible. I've always had a question: is imagine if you paid politicians minimum wage, would they all still be there? And I'm not sure. It's not like you're doing this for the money. You're doing this because you want to make a change. You've done enough in terms of maybe financial gain. You're comfortable.
I'm not looking for a job.
Exactly. That's what I mean. You're doing this
my
purely for a
dream
change.
scenario here is that National or Labour, whoever forms the government, says, right, Gareth, that was fun, and we like 80% of your policies, and we're going to implement them. Then I could go to the beach. That's my dream scenario. I don't have to go into that zoo. My nightmare is actually going in there.
Well, that was my next question. Some would say, why start from scratch? Is it because your policies are so strong and different that they don't coalesce with their policies?
No, they build on the base we have now. So they take the given status quo and then they build on that and they change some of the fundamentals under that, quite dramatically. So we will, if we get given a go, we will end up in New Zealand with a UBI, for example, a universal basic income. And that really...
What does that mean? What is that?
What is? Everybody gets a certain amount of cash a year.
Everybody? No matter if you're a banker or you are homeless?
Matter. Yeah. So I've done quite a bit of work on that, and you have and the point of that is that's the income, that's the privilege of being a New Zealand citizen.
So a student would get this?
Yes.
How does it work?
So a student, therefore, would have choices whether they want to take that money and invest it in an education, tertiary education that might, give them overall at the end, or whether they would rather build a trade for themselves, or whether they do a start-up. So you have all the choice from that. And the point about and the other thing the other thing a UBI acknowledges is that there's 1 million people in this economy, 1 million adults who are working for nothing. So they're bringing up children, they're looking after the elderly, they're doing community work. There's 1 million people doing this. Now, in our day-to-day dialogue, those people almost don't exist. You know what I mean? They're not contributing to GDP as we measure it. But this economy and society would collapse without the contribution of those people.
Yeah.
So UBI recognises that. And so the default line of thought is every adult contributes. Not every adult who's not in paid work is a bludger, which is the sort of psychology of the status quo. That's garbage.
So where would this UBI pot of money come from?
Yeah. So you get quite a lot of it from rolling back the targeted benefits. You bring New Zealand super down to the level of the UBI. To get the UBI, same as everybody else, but they don't get this gold-plated benefit. I don't get it, that I would get now. The other thing we want to do eventually is have one level of income tax, one rate. So every dollar you earn, let's say the number is 25%.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you were getting a UBI of 10,000,
yeah,
and the tax rate is 25, that means you don't pay $1 of tax till you earn 40. That's actually what it means.
Okay.
You and your wife, you know, so that's double that in a household.
Okay.
So that's, and the other thing it addresses is casualisation of work. The fact that, you know, so many people now are working today, not working tomorrow, you know what I mean? So it covers what Labour call the future of work. But the issue with the UBI is it's got to add up in terms of the government's books.
Yes.
Obviously. So the way you'll find us doing it is we are moving to it incrementally. We are bringing down the super payout. We're using that money to bring up the unconditional income of the poorest of the poor. And eventually we'll end up with a UBI.
But Sweden or Norway
and
just
Finland,
do this,
and
policy
Israel,
as well?
they're all playing with this because they all realise, you know, you get a world of automatic trucks. What are we going to do with all those truck drivers?
Exactly. That's a good point. I mean,
So
technology is changing the world.
Yeah, so they need money to retrain or to invest in doing a business, or, you know what I mean? They need to...
Totally agree. But just to get it straight though, say a kitchen hand and a lawyer, they are still going to be the same person. They'll still qualify for a UBI.
So every adult gets it. And I want a child UBI as well, that would be less. And it would be, a child UBI would be highest for the very young child, like from the first year of birth, because that's where they're most vulnerable, and that's where we're going back to that education issue. That's where we're getting big problems. And then it just tapers off to a child UBI, which would be about a third of an adult UBI.
Now we're talking about UBIs, you know, children getting to the UBI. Thoughts on KiwiSaver? Because I know you weren't involved with it during the start, but you would have something to say about KiwiSaver and how it's implemented in New Zealand.
Well, KiwiSaver was a step back to what we used to have, which was before Muldoon did the big election bribe to end all election bribes, New Zealand Super. Man, we're paying for New Zealand Super. Here we are, generations after it was introduced. And it's a huge problem for your generation because there's not many of you and there's a heap of me. And it's coming out of your taxes. So what the whole KiwiSaver thing was to try and get you to save yourselves, you know, because we know that New Zealand Super can't be funded otherwise. So we had the Cullen Fund, New Zealand Super Fund, and KiwiSaver itself. Now the problem with it is this: as long as we have this issue, this hole in the tax system, the income tax system that is causing this massive property speculation, then KiwiSaver really is, what would I say, a bit of a side issue, because most people, young ones, do it and then take it all and get into the property speculation business with it. I can't believe I've never thought of it like that.
We're paying for it because I was in Australia for about 3 or 4 years and was in Super and my goodness, it's so different from KiwiSaver. It almost seems like it's, you know, times 10. It's just totally different. And I wouldn't want to say we're being duped, but we're definitely, like you said, paying for it now because of, you know, repercussions in the past.
Yeah, so the key for me is if we can get rid of this property problem in New Zealand, which is, you know, take Germany, Switzerland, last 40 years their house prices haven't gone up versus income at all. And they're far more successful economies because they do what I'm talking about. They tax the income on owner-occupied housing.
I see.
They do exactly what I'm... There's no such thing as an original idea, right?
No, not always. Well, the Better Knowledge book that you wrote a long time ago would have been, you know, quite a new one. I haven't seen anything come out since then, or maybe there'll be copies of that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, look, what you're doing is taking some great ideas that are working around the world and then trying to implement them here. So you've got the UBI, you've got the marijuana, you've got the tax on the houses, Is there anything else that stands out that...
Immigration is one that we've already announced, and there's two sides to immigration, because the government has used immigration to keep this economy going while the dairy prices and all that have gone through the floor. So it was pretty successful actually. In fact, we're bulging at the seams in terms of infrastructure problems and all that. So, rather have those problems than everybody be unemployed, because we've all gone down with the dairy thing. But you can have too much of a good thing.
So would you say because I saw something on the news the other day, apparently we let in 750 refugees, critics are saying we should top it up to 1,500.
Yeah. So
what do you think?
Yeah,
Cut it
I
out,
totally agree with that. I totally agree with the refugees. But let's get the order of magnitude right here. You're talking about up to 2,000 refugees. That's hardly significant compared to the 70,000, right, of economic migrants.
Yes.
That's the issue. So our issue with the refugees is the same. We should do our fair share, and we're not. So that's that much. Now let's talk about this much, which is the economic migrants. And unfortunately, that is a disaster, because what has happened is they have, how would you say it, corrupted the immigration scheme in order to build a foreign student education business. So the foreign student education business here used to be the 15th biggest exporter. It's now the 4th. It's huge. And why is that? Why have all these people suddenly decided they need a New Zealand education? It's a con job. What the government did is it's awarded 60 points of the 160 you need to be a resident. You get 60 points if you're already here. Mm-hmm. So all these guys, and there's an infinite number of them, right? Foreigners want to come here. Oh Christ, I've got to get there. So how do I get there? Well, we've got a deal for you. Just over here, if you just enroll in our shonky foreign student education sector, we'll give you a degree in doing your own hair, right? If you just enroll in that, then basically you get 60 points. Mm. So you qualify for, residency status. I know a lot about this stuff because we've got contacts in this. I know people who are doing exactly this.
A lot of
so they come in,
education agencies.
They enroll for a course that they're not interested in at all, and they keep that going because after a few years that qualifies them puts them at the head of the queue with those 60 points for residency. So we have gone from using, highly skilled, talented migrants to increase your and my income because they generate work and, We've gone to all these, nobody, there's no contribution being made by them, And the system's corrupt all the way from the officials forging forms back in India to qualify to the polytechs here who are forging the exam results.
So they know it too. They know they're doing this. This is a loophole.
And the bank clerks are doing it as well to forge the guy so the guy looks as though he's got enough money, right, to sustain himself. So we have a corrupt supply chain from beginning to end. Right? So this shonky foreign student sector is a sham. And the government's so proud of it because it's now our 5th biggest exporter.
You exposing this though, there are going to be a lot of people getting in the way of this. Are you saying you'd change the point system? Or
totally. What? I'd get rid of the 60 points for being here. You can stick that where the sun don't shine. The criteria for economic migrants should be this. If your presence here increases the incomes of New Zealanders, welcome. If it doesn't, we'd love you to visit, but see you later.
Well, but that at the moment it's currently the other way around. It's how much money you got and like you said, what education you're going to go in or what can you study and what you'll bring in terms of their educational monetary value.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is those people are coming out, as I said with a diploma in doing hair or something, and they're regarded as skilled migrants. Are you kidding me? They're under the average wage.
They're just ticking a box, really, aren't they?
It's complete, and that's been generated by the key government's done that.
And that's another thing
I'd smash it.
Smash it out the water.
You better would, straight away. We don't want that sort of migration. If we can't find people that can come here and improve our standard of living, why would we have any of them?
Oh, totally agree.
What's the rationale?
Yeah. Should ask Winston Peters that question.
Well, Winston is similar to me on this actually. There's not much difference. I'm a bit like him, but without the xenophobia.
Yeah.
So, I would say, look, if we're going to have migrants from China, that's great. Can we have brain surgeons and IT developers and people all from India, whatever? It's great. But can we just have a skill set with them?
Well, that's the thing. We do have a great education system, but some might come and then leave. So America's gone through a lot of it as well. Some of their top colleges, people going in, getting a brain drain, and leaving.
Well, that's the thing that
I've
been thinking about. We haven't done anything about this formally on policy yet, but with our university, you know how you have to pay fees to go to university now. I got mine free.
Oh, great.
I'm a baby boomer, right?
Yeah.
That's just another way I've screwed you. Okay, don't forget.
I'm learning all about that today.
Don't forget it.
Jesus, TV saver, this.
Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so one way that you might get a better return on people at university is say, okay, you've got to pay your fees, but have we got a deal for you? If you work in New Zealand, in the field that you've got your qual in, for 4 years, you get your fees given back to you.
That's great, because what is the incentive to stay at the moment?
Because otherwise we train people like that.
We'll see you later.
Yeah.
And the thing is, a lot of Kiwis, because you're probably brought up in a small town or wherever, a lot of them do travel. You've travelled around the world. A lot of Kiwis are known for being, travellers and doing all sorts of tricky tours across the world. However, what is apart from New Zealand being clean, green and beautiful, why would you come back? Apart from the living standards or some sort of other incentive to stay after you finish.
I mean, I think New Zealand is becoming a more and more desirable place. I don't think there's any doubt about that, given all the turbulence overseas. And if we can use our natural capital, our environment, to generate, income, basically, which you do by, if you protect it and enhance it, then what has Sir Paul Callaghan said? He said, make New Zealand a place where talent wants to live. And we, and so you get the sort of people, what's talent? Talent are people that create jobs. And you've just seen this with the Peter Thiel thing, Now there's aspects of the Peter Thiel deal that I actually really like. The man's generated hundreds and hundreds of thousands of jobs around the world, come on. Of course we should have, but I don't like is, hang on a minute, he's not going to be paying his taxes here though, is he?
No.
Well, that's not on. If you're a New Zealand citizen, this is your tax base. Nowhere else. So if we can do this properly, make New Zealand a very desirable place to live, which is not far off. It's a long way away, it's peaceful, and if we can get our environment even better, our sustainability, if we can restore honesty in our climate change policy, then we go market to those sort of guys and say, come to New Zealand, we're not opening the door to everybody, but if you come to New Zealand, we'll give you citizenship eventually, but you will be a New Zealand taxpayer. So I'm a bit ambivalent about this dual citizenship thing. You can be a citizen of more than one country. I mean, the Americans don't like it. The Americans say, if you're a citizen of America, you will pay taxes here. We don't care where else you are. Well, I think we should do that too. You're a citizen of New Zealand, you will pay taxes here on all your world income.
Well, that would bring a lot more money back to New Zealand, especially for some of the likes that you're mentioning. But then again, that's another policy change that doesn't exist.
There's not too many policies there that I'm not changing, but
that's
we
what
want
saying.
progress. Otherwise, you have the status quo of same old. Okay, is Labour in charge now? Now it's National, now it's Labour, and still nothing's happening. And all the time that we're doing this, we're fiddling while Rome burns. Inequality's just going like this in New Zealand. That's not the New Zealand I want.
It's scary to think too. If you weren't doing anything, who the heck else is? The other people that are in charge at the moment. They don't really have policies like this. They haven't talked about it. Keys obviously...
But that's not how politics works in New Zealand. Politics is all about career.
Well,
and
exactly.
So look at Winston, he's been here 150 years, or how long he's been, 40 years, 30 years. I mean, those career politicians, it's all about a job. So you made the comment earlier, and I agree with it 100%, is that MP should be paid the average wage. No more.
Some of them might not want to be there anymore, though.
Oh, wouldn't that be a job? Wouldn't that be a tragedy? So you'd get fewer taxi drivers with loud mouths in Parliament. I think that would be a quantum improvement.
Yes. I mean, I totally agree, and it's something I've always, I wouldn't say admired, but with Trump, you know, he's coming to it with money, but he pays himself $1, and you see just getting Superannuation in 2 years, and you don't want it. I mean, you're purely going in for this, for change, to make New Zealand a better place.
Because I've spent my whole life working on New Zealand policy and the economy, society policy. I've written books on it. I know what we need to do to make progress. So I can either go and enjoy the life of Riley because I've got enough money to do that, or I can give this a fling and see if there's enough New Zealanders who support it. And if there's not, well, I've got a lovely life anyway. So it's not that I don't care, I do care. But at the end of the day, it's the people's decision whether they want to do something, you know, whether they really want to strike out and get some progress here in terms of reducing inequality and poverty and all the rest of it. So I'm just giving them that opportunity. And that's it. But if I don't get, you know, personally, if you're talking about Gareth Morgan rather than the Opportunities Party itself, if I don't get 10 to 15% of this vote, I'm not going into Parliament.
Well, let's talk about that, 10 to 15%.
I have to have a mandate.
So, let's say there's 1 million voters out there, right? Will there be less, conservatively speaking?
No, there's more than 1 million.
So, if we just round it to 1 million.
Okay, yeah. Say there's 1 million.
So then you have to get at minimum 5%. That's 50,000 voters. That be correct?
To get in, if you're not standing on the electorate, you need to get 5%.
So it's 50,000.
Well, whatever, yeah, of that. But it would be 5 of the 120 seats. So that gives you 6 seats. Because 120 seats.
And then that gives you a position of...
But personally, I'm a bit uncomfortable of making radical policy change, which is what I'm talking about, on the back of 5%. I don't feel I have I don't feel I have a mandate. I might be able to wag the dog because, you know, the way the other clubs have fallen, sure. I happen to have the balance of power. I mean, Winston being like Flint, this is exactly, he'd be PM and all the rest of it. That's not me. I need a mandate, and for me to be in there doing this, I reckon we need 10 to 15. Now, let's say we get 5%. Then there'll be others around me in the Opportunities Party who will say, look, Gareth, we're happy to dig in here for the long haul and build this party over, you know, 2 or 3 terms. I mean, my view on that, shit, 2 or 3 terms, I'll be dead. You're not getting my life.
John Key only
see you later.
Couple of them is gone.
So I would hang around and fund them and help them with their, you know, intellectually, with their policies. But I'm not doing time in that zoo, just treading water. You've got to be joking.
I'd love to, that's a good way of describing it, the zoo. I'd love to see someone like you in there, in you know, Wellington. Obviously you're living there, but I probably need someone like you, you know, if you did get in, because how could some of the people in there with logical, right thinking minds not agree with some of these policies? How
they can't. They won't argue, they won't debate with me on policy. Where their problem is it's tribal, you know. It's, I'm Labour, I've always voted Labour, and if National says this is a good idea, well, I don't care. It's National saying it, so they're wrong. It's so bloody childish.
Well, we're a bit primitive too in terms of tribalism, whether it be, you know, rugby teams, political parties.
But it's not doing
groups.
us any good. We need a logical, you know, and people say, well, on this issue we should have a logical conclusion. So they talk about a bipartisan agreement across parties. That'll never happen because of the tribalism. So you need a party in there, which is what we are, that says, look guys, this is what we want. We don't care whether the government's Labour or National. I don't give a toss about that. Yep. But we will, if we're in a position to make a difference, then whoever does most of our top 7 gets our nod.
I agree.
End of story. Take it or leave it.
So the next few months, well, obviously until the end of the year, are going to be absolutely hectic for you. You know, you obviously live in Welly, Tauranga, and you're going to be up and down the country.
Oh yeah.
What does your schedule look like for the next few months?
It's nuts. So what happens is we finish. Jeff's out doing Mount Albert at the moment, so that's really interesting. And I'm just releasing the rest of this policy. So we've got 3 down. We've got another one next week, another one the week after. So that'll be 5, 2 to go. Beginning of March, so just after Mount Albert, we start the National Road Tour, and we're on that until Election Day.
Top of the north to the bottom of the south?
Up and down. We got, it's like a circus coming to town, with the vans and everything, and we just go through talking to people.
What are you
So I want to have some meetings purely for people who oppose me.
Well, that's what I was going to say. What are you going to do when some people do come on the street, especially the older generation, saying, don't take away my gold card? That's just maybe their perception.
That's
but
right.
You're not doing that, are you? Or you're not really trying to take anything away from it. You're just trying to spread equal...
Spread the love.
Yeah,
that's
spread
right.
the love, spread the pot, I guess.
That's exactly right.
And why wouldn't
I'm
they
trying
want
to get them to
about
get their heads out of the trough.
Yeah.
Right? They've had a lifetime with them in there, mate. It's not going to be easy. Right?
Yeah.
But that's the mission. So, I'll debate the policies with anybody. As long as they can stay on top, I can debate the policies rather than personalities or,
Exactly.
but Winston's so lovely and, oh God, you're so flaky. But,
Well,
I had no time for those.
That's a strong
Just
argument.
not interested.
I guess what we're trying to get to today is that you're not... There's by no means you're doing this for the money. You're not a career politician.
No.
You've made you've achieved things in the business world outside of politics, and now it's time to make a bit of a change in the political world for the good.
That's what this is about. And who knows what's going to happen.
Oh, it's quite commendable in a sense. We're looking forward to watching the ride. We're going to be obviously following you along the way. In terms of also your charity, is it the Gareth Morgan?
The Morgan Foundation.
Are you still running that? And
Well,
is
I'm not running
open?
it because I can't ride two horses, especially when one's charitable. So I've resigned from that. Sort of sound a bit like Clinton, isn't it? I've resigned from that, and our daughter's running that. It's still our money.
Is there still much left in the pot after the trade me quote?
We're down about, I think, there might be about 40% left still.
Okay, and is it an easy process to go through? And
really hard.
Yeah, okay.
That is so hard. And,
Really?
We've made mistakes in the sense that, this guy sounds pretty credible, so we go and do a social investment there and then, it doesn't work. But we've had some marvellous
Well, that's the hard
successes
thing about
too.
charity too. Yeah, you don't obviously get a return, but what is the criteria? What's the perfect candidate for someone that would be
I know this is going to strike you as quite flippant, this answer, but I'll try and explain it. The first thing I would say is that there are more charities than there are causes. So it's quite crowded, and I'm sure they're all wonderful, so
Sure.
I am taking the piss a little bit, but so we need a criteria to select one versus the other. So this criteria we ended up with was fun. We have to really enjoy.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I could got rid of that 50 million really easy. I could have just got in an aeroplane flown on the Wairarapa, over the Wairarapa and just lifted it out. It'd all been gone the week, and I thought, this doesn't sound like much fun.
Could have been stress.
Yeah, so a lot less stress. So in the end, if we have fun doing it, and there's been some pretty cool projects that we've had a lot of fun. I was, just a month or two ago, was up on that border, Syria and Lebanon, with all those, poor people coming across from Syria, under the Aleppo thing, into they're not camps actually, informal settlements in Lebanon, and in the Bekaa Valley and that. That stuff is just so desperate, and you've got kiddies there who have seen their parents killed in front of them, and it's just little babies, and people are trying to look after them. And the people of Lebanon, population of 4 million, same as us.
Yeah.
Population now 6 million, with the extra 2 being refugees,
Wow.
And we worry about going from 700 to 1,500.
That's a good point.
It's pathetic.
Yeah.
All right? And these people, Lebanese, have opened their homes. It's unbelievable what they've done. I just cannot believe. And so I looked at that, and just the joy that you get from seeing what humans can do for other humans.
Yeah.
And I said, Joanne, and back in New Zealand they're worried about house prices.
Yeah.
God, it's awful, isn't it? So, things like that I get a buzz out of. And, we put money into some of these psychiatric wards where these kiddies work. These kids are in such bad states, all they want to do is be touched, they're babies, right?
Yeah.
So Jan'd go in there and she'd have 6 kids, ranging up to 14, and all they're doing is just touching her, holding her. That's how in shock they are. Meanwhile, we're worried about, gold cards.
And that leads me to a statement of, some people go, look, Gareth Morgan, he's got all this money, why doesn't he just go off and drive a Ferrari and travel the world? But for that statement that you just said there alone, some moments like that are quite priceless, and the joy that you get out of that
Ferrari
money
that can
can't
give you
buy.
that. Ferrari can't give you that joy, that sort of, and we've had a lot of that, from kids on the tip in Paraguay. I remember that too, living on the tip. Gee. Anyway, so we ride our motorbikes around the world, around all these countries. We've been doing it for many years now, and we've had a lot of partnerships with some unbelievable people doing some incredible stuff. Quite a few Kiwis actually. Like a guy, Edric Baker, who runs this hospital, and he's just died, Edric actually, but has been running this hospital in Bangladesh for 30 years, Bold basic dirt floors, you've got to bring your own nurse.
Wow.
Which means, your mum or your sister.
Oh, so a family member?
Yeah.
Own nurse, okay.
This is real bold basic stuff. And that's a Kiwi who's been doing that. And so yeah, I don't think you can get more pleasure. I'm in an amazingly privileged position that I can help those sort of people. And all I'm saying to you is that, for every one of those, I'd have 2 that fail. So it's not an easy sector.
Well, it's really good to hear these sort of stories and truths, because that's what we'll hear about today, is to just understand a little bit about your previous life, what you're doing next. And I think it's quite courageous, commendable, that you're doing this purely to make a difference, and that should really appeal to a lot of New Zealanders out there, purely of your actions and intentions to make New Zealand a better place.
Yeah, no,
from
that's what
a
it's
good,
about.
honest, hard-working Kiwi.
I'm just counting down to the September the 23rd, so that I can get my life back.
Yeah, I was going to say, you'll deserve a bit of a rest after that.
That's right.
You're going to be bombarded by the media. Hopefully, their coverage is fair and unbiased, but we'll see. It'll be an interesting road. That's the great thing about what we're doing here today. It's unfiltered, it's fair, and everything we talked about will, be open and aired to the public.
All the warts too. You're not going to edit out something.
Oh, I'll put it in the,
Yeah.
No, really,
Oh, no,
really
it's a
appreciate
pleasure.
it. So yeah, all the best for the next 6-7 months. We obviously look forward to hearing about these radical policies around marijuana, the UBI,
Yeah.
and the percentage on housing and whatnot. So
Yeah, no, that's what I'm going to engage the public on, so I'm looking forward to it really. It's just dealing with the meatheads that's the issue really.
well, there's going to be a
there's
few
a
out
lot
there.
of them, and you just go, I can't believe this, but hopefully they'll be outnumbered by racial. I mean, I've got it must be my economics backdrop. I've got an enormous faith in the public that once they get full information, they're incredibly rational.
Law of averages.
So all I'm trying to do is give them full information so they can make up their own minds and full knowledge. People say to me, oh, my opinion's as good as yours. I said, well, actually, buddy, on that subject it's not.
Well,
There's opinions and there's informed opinions. And if you haven't got the humility to realise that here you're out of your depth, then the problem is you. It's like me arguing with some agricultural expert on, what the best grass in this paddock is.
Who are you to say?
Well,
that,
my opinion's worth nothing.
Yeah. Well, and that's hopefully what we'll learn from today, and a bit of public along this road trip does. Learn when you get your voice out there, you're implementing, talking about your policies for what they logically are.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Appreciate your time, again.
Okay,
It was awesome.
cool.
Thank you.
Cheers. Okay.
So what are you doing for the weekend?
Well, I'm about to go and do a rally in Mount Albert.
Oh, the Drap Summit?
Yeah.
How did you end up picking
I'm
him?
gonna
Did he
go
come
watch
to
it.
you? Do you know?
Jet's worked with me.
Over the
he's-
years.
In the
Oh
foundation
yeah, so we've
thing,
done
or-
about three books together.
Oh, wow.
So no, I know.
So you guys know each other real inside out.
Totally. And he, so when this came up, I said, oh, I'm not standing in any electorates. I'd be a terrible representative. Imagine those little old ladies coming in and moaning about their bloody
And then a
canister
few
tree or something.
handbags and stuff.
And not me. And then Mount Albert came up, and then that said, we're not going to stand. And I said, show me the voting figures for Mount Albert. So 30,000 voters, 14,000 voted national. They're not standing. So who's standing? Labour. And then the Greens came out. That was even more incongruous. I thought they were mates. What are they standing against each other? So there's no, and they're both existing MPs. So they make no difference. Or if one wins, they'll just get an extra list MP in the House who won't represent Mount Albert. So I looked at it and said, there's no one actually wanting to champion Mount Albert's issues between now and the election. Sure. And then Jeff said, you realise that's my home electorate, don't you?
Wow.
I said, what do you mean? He said, that's where I grew up. That's where my family still lives. Really? How'd you like a job, mate?
Just like that.
That's it, done.
Well, you know,
That's how we did it.
Jobs is famous for saying people that are crazy enough think they can change the world actually might. And like you if you step background, like you just said, 14,000, 30,000 the area. If no one challenges or champions it, it just goes automatically to one or the other, right? Through just being there.
Yeah, so the key there is we've got to get those national voters out in Mount Albert. At the moment, you know, so we'll see.
Do you think the national voters are just going to not disappear, but slowly decline after Key's gone and English is here now? And do you think they'll just...
Well, that would be that's what you would expect. I mean, John Key was such a good leader for National. You know, I mean, he's huge. And Bill is totally competent, but it's a bit like Michael Cullen taking over from Helen Clark. You know, now I don't want to put the hex on Bill English at all, but I mean, no one's going to match John Key. So, you know, it's a question of, you know, can Bill sort of hold it rather than it collapse.
But it's out of Bill and Andrew Little, and it's like, it's almost
that's right. You see the
Trump.
TV, eh? Which one's which now?
Yeah.
Especially now Andrew hasn't got the glasses.
What would happen if, say, this all...
They need labels.
What would happen if, say, you know, we're just fast forwarding here and you got a phenomenal, astronomical success and then you got put into the position of power of Prime Minister?
No, I wouldn't accept it. That's not what I'm about. I want the policies.
That's all you want, hey?
Yeah, that's all I want. So I turn around to whoever's next. And I thought, I mean, that's what I had, of course, but if it was Labour or National, say, all right, you're in. I need you to do, you know, let's get on and do this seriously.
You've got motorbikes and books to ride. And,
I've got better things to do. Sorry, it's
yeah.
just done my work.
Yeah.
I just want now to see it in effect.
Wouldn't that be awesome to have on your CV though? Just Gareth Morgan, Prime Minister.
No.
63, right? When are you 64 this year? Or next?
Yeah, in a few days.
Oh,
Yeah.
mate, I just haven't got the energy at 63 like you, mate.
So yeah, just topical question because it's Waitangi weekend. So just regards to the treaty, do you think we're honouring it quite as well, or
no, not yet. What we've done since '75 when Maori marched and said you better bloody do this or we'll tear your house down. Okay, took notice then. What we've done is we've said right, all the breaches since 1840 to now, step up with your list and we'll get the tribunal and the courts to go through them all, and where there are clear breaches, then the government will negotiate a settlement with you. Right? So that was great because the government was then acknowledging that the treaty mattered. It's huge, this. And that there had been breaches, illegal stuff. So anyway, that whole process has been going on for a long time. And then overall, if you take the thing overall, what's happened is that Maori have settled for just under 2 cents on the dollar on those breaches. That's what they've actually settled for. So Treasury did all that. And like Ngā Tahu, they had the whole of the South Island, right? Well, chance of getting that back went too high. So it was either settled or get nothing, and stalemate again. So Maori, to their credit, I think, that's been fantastic. Take the 2 cents on the dollar, and you watch us bloody multiply this, and they've done really well. A lot of those Maori. Overall, they're bloody brilliant, what they've done. So that's cool. So that sort of makes up, we've agreed to agree, on settlement in the past. But now the treaty is in over 300 pieces of legislation, but it needs to be honoured on an ongoing, otherwise, because the tribunal's still there'll be more breaches. Like this water thing, right? With Maori with the ownership of water, that is a breach. So at some stage Maori will take a claim and there will be more money, have to be paid. So we're not we're still breaching, you see. So we need to honour it. And the way to do that, I feel, is to give Maori basically, not give them what they're due. And what they're due, what Article 2 is Rangatiratanga. They must have self-determination in various areas. So education, health, social provision. They need that delivered, for example, in a Maori empathetic manner. There's no point in giving them some Euro version of healthcare where they don't actually connect. It doesn't or education. It doesn't connect. You're nominally you're giving them the same as me, a Pākehā, but I can actually take it and use it. They can't. You must deliver it in the way that is acceptable to them. If you sort of understand that. So that's one thing. And the other thing is they need a share in governance, right? Because that's what the thing says. Even though Parliament or government is sovereign, right? Now some Maori will dispute that. But there's no doubt in my mind that they have ceded sovereignty. They might not have done it on the day, because they did like Ngāpuhi didn't sign the treaty. So we didn't cede sovereignty. And that's correct. No, you didn't cede it because you didn't sign the treaty. But you have ceded it since because you've accepted the British system of justice and the laws in the court. So that's ceding sovereignty. So it's all a bit semantic, that Ngāpuhi thing. However, we should have a shared role in governance, or Maori should. So how do you do that without scaring the bejesus out of non-Maori? And how do you make it a win-win? And that's a policy we're announcing on Tuesday, which is New Zealand needs to go back to the standard democratic model that is in just about all Western democracies. I can't think of another that doesn't have this, and that is 2 houses, not one. We got rid of our upper house at Parliament in 1950. So Australia's got an upper house, not just at federal level, but at every state level there's 2 houses. America's the same. Canada, they're all the same. Britain. But we have cleared all that away, and now Parliament has lost its sovereignty, and it's concentrated now in the cabinet of the government, which is way, way, way too much. So what happens is those guys ramrode legislation through. The biggest piece of it was Muldoon, National Super, and it breaches the Constitution, because it breaches intergenerationally, it's buggered you for your rights. Because you're a young fella, you see. Well, you can never do that in a 2-house system. The upper house would say, hey, that's a breach. Sorry, you can't do that. So all the upper house can do in these places, it's not sovereign, it can just send it back to Parliament and say, think about this again. And it tells you and me and the public, there's a problem here. They're breaching your sovereignty. So they're very, very useful, check and balance on lawmaking, hugely useful. So my view on that is we need that upper house back. Definitely we need it. And I think that's the place where Maori should have 50%, as per the treaty. They can't make laws. All they can do is say, this is a breach, and here's the Constitution, and this is why. Right? And they can go back to the Parliament and say, and Parliament says, maybe, but we're going to do it anyway. No shit. So then they can go back again. Parliament goes, naff off. That's it. That's the limit of their powers. But by then, of course, it's got such huge public recognition. The chances of Parliament telling the people in New Zealand to take a hike, not very high.
It's like a vetting or filtering process.
Yeah, it's an independent, reasonable person's check, which all these other democracies have, but we don't, and we're paying the price for it. Wow. And it's a wonderful opportunity to bring Maori together and say, this treaty is between 2 absolutely separate societies, Maori and everybody who's arrived since. And this is reflected in our upper house, right? And this is how we're working together. There's not a threat to anybody. It's a win-win for everybody. But, you think I can get this past the white trash vote? That's my issue.
Well, a lot of people jump to conclusions when you would say they wouldn't, after you've just explained that, it all makes sense, but it could get misconstrued in the media in just one title statement.
Yeah, and the media do that all the time. Because I've got to collapse all this into a bloody 5 words to explain what Gareth said. Well, the first word must be cats. And then, welcome to New Zealand media.
Do you think the media are going to focus on this beef that you have with Peters?
No. I mean, I'm only doing this thing against Peters because it's Waitangi time, Waitangi week,
Go
and
on.
it's very important for Marydom. I mean, Peters gets 20% of his vote from Murray.
Do you think it represents them well?
Shut no. He's completely the antithesis of what Murray are after. He's completely anti the treaty. And he's changed. He got into power by winning all the Maori seats. Now he doesn't believe in the Maori seats, because that's thrown him out, of course.
Has he heard your vetting, your policy about the two-house system? Has he heard?
Yeah.
And
And
what's
his
his-
smart ass, this is typical Peters, right? This is right. Oh, Morgan wants 2 houses, Murray just want 1.
He's
He's a
good
good
at
gag
one
man.
eye-
Yes,
one
but
eye, isn't
okay,
he?
but that's right. I mean, he tells gags, right? And then he gives that Cheshire cat grunt and, you know, all the aunties fall for it. So is that the depth of New Zealand politics, is it?
Well,
It may well be. I'm about to
stage,
find out,
yeah.
aren't I?
Well, it's going to be amazing to see this journey in the next 6
Yeah.
months, to
Very
see
interesting.
if there is how flawed the system is. Is there room for change, something like this, or as radical? Well, I don't even think it's radical, it's
It's
logical.
not. John Key said to me, "You're radical." And I said, yes, but what would you rather, radical or extreme, like America's just got? Because
Yeah.
you sit on your hands and don't do anything. It's only radical because you guys are used to doing nothing.
True, yeah, that's a good point.
Anything's radical.
Did you speak to John before launching the party?
No.
Okay. But were you friends with
Yeah.
John? Okay.
Yeah. But and Andrew Little as well.
Interesting.
Do you think John's, I mean, it's a big question, but he's probably just relaxing, he's probably happy to have
Totally.
stepped down now
Yeah,
and
I
just
mean,
doing
I've
his own
taken-
thing.
I've taken him at his word, you know, and I've got no reason not to. I know all the press conspiracy theories, but I think he said, you know, I've been doing this for 8 years, tank's empty.
Yeah.
I don't know how the hell he did it for 8 years. 8 months would be really amazing for me.
I think it was anyone in any role that has the, I guess, balls to say when their heart's on it, step down, especially if you're leading a nation, it's probably a good choice.
Yeah.
Rather than turning up to eat your lunch, like a lot of politicians, right?
He was full on, you know, I mean, he was a hard worker, that guy. Like, he would do, you know, 3-4 speeches a day,
Yeah.
you know, and always shaking hands and doing selfies. I think of nothing worse.
It'd be taxing, mentally. It'd be,
Yeah.
like you said, 3-4 speeches a day, dinner at night. You wouldn't really switch off your phone too.
No. But he's good. Yeah, it's good for the... And I think, you know, his biggest contribution from my point of view was he pulled National back from that hard rise of John Brash and Collins, and God, if National had gone down that path, it would have been a very ugly scene we'd be talking about now. Would have been horrible. So he pulled them back from that. That was his plus. His minus was was basically he knew that damage was being caused, but he wasn't prepared to take it on through this housing thing.
Mm.
And I had that discussion with him, and I said, "You've got to stop this, man. It's just the bloody inequity this is causing is ridiculous." He said, "Yeah, but you've got to tax the house, like you're saying." I said, "Yes." He said, "Gareth, they will never accept that."
An interesting one.
So that's the challenge. But I need the young people to come out and say, we want housing and rent to be affordable, because I'm the only guy really willing to attack what I think is the biggest issue for us right now.
What about first-time buyers? Because I've getting into a position where I'm trying to buy a house, and at times, I've just been destroyed by overseas people with bigger cash deposits.
Yeah.
Do you think there should be anything set up for Kiwis or New Zealanders?
Well,
to
I
get
wouldn't
into a
mind
first house?
absentee owners paying a higher rate of tax for owners. That wouldn't, on residential, if we're talking not commercial, but on residential, I would say, well, unless you're here living in that house, your tax rate isn't 1.5, a year it's 4.
Yeah.
Oh, that'll get them on the googlies.
They will, yeah.
And it's this whole point of, well, if you're a New Zealander, and you should really be living here.
Yeah.
Now, if they're citizens, I wouldn't have that rule. So if you've got a New Zealand citizen who's living overseas, but if they're just residents, not citizens, so they're not proper New Zealanders, if you know what I mean, and they're buying up half a dozen. Now, the only issues with these sort of things is they set up trusts and companies to dodge and hide things.
Yeah.
So you have to expand the definition to beneficial owner. So you come to a property, there's a house there, who's the beneficial owner of that? You say, well, that's owned by me and my wife jointly. Well, that's easy. Right.
100%.
Now, what about the next one? Well, that's owned by a trust. Okay, I want all the beneficiaries. You pay 4%, not 1.5%, until I'm satisfied that the ultimate beneficiaries are Kiwis.
And that 4% goes back into economy pot for UBI, all that sort of stuff.
That gives you your tax cuts.
Yeah.
Salary and wage earners are paying far too much of the tax. Ridiculous amount of the tax. And guys like me with all these assets, I get the benefit of them and it's tax free. Thanks very much. So after September, if you don't put me in, I'm just going to go and buy another 6 houses.
Is Sam going to join you on the campaign trail?
No.
No? Not making an appearance?
No. Well, Sam's his own guy, and, you know, there's only room in a town for one of us. No, I don't really mean that. He's never been in this public policy type thing, you know, that's not his gig. His gig is, you know, business and technology and stuff like that. So completely
obviously runs in the family. Did you, when he was growing up, did you get him into economics and stats?
Well,
and
he couldn't
avoid
it.
Yeah. So it's obviously rubbed off on him, but in a different sense with the
and his
technology.
His mother's a trader, you know, has always been a trader, buys and sells anything, you know. She'll buy and sell her relatives. So
interesting mix.
yeah, so of course he used to say to her when she was selling, you know, students' desks off the back of a lorry at the beginning of term, oh mum, you saying, you know, you're so embarrassing, you know, selling all these, you know. Turns out to be the biggest garage sale merchant in the country. So he learned a skill off his mother.
Where is he now? Is he residing in?
He lives in Nelson, yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, very you know, very interesting story in that sense too. And what a success! What a great success story, father and son.
Oh, it was well, it's whole family and son. I mean, his sister ran that firm while he went and did his OE. And his mother, all of us would go around the car parks putting little trade me cards under people's wipers. So we didn't pay $1 on advertising. It was all word of mouth. So that's. I remember with Trade Me when we set it up. You know, Sam said, "Oh, we're on the news. We're on the news on Thursday. Shit, you know, I better go and buy another server." You know, he didn't have the money, so I bought him an $8,000 or something. But because he said the whole system will crash if we get more than 200 people on it. You know, boom, the system crashed anyway. You know, so they were exciting times.
Back then, did you have a slight inkling or feeling that it was going to be as big as what it was?
No, shit, no. I mean, my investment was really just to keep them out of jail.
Yeah.
You know, what you do with your kids, just, you know, it was phenomenal.
My dad's obsessed with it. He is obsessed with Trade Me.
Yeah.
He could spend all day on it. I've used
That's
it now.
cool though, isn't it? I mean,
it's
it disintermediates, so you know now what the value of the vehicle is around the corner.
Definitely.
You don't get the car dealer in front of you, you know. So it's the best deal you'll ever get around the corner. You know, you buy it and drive out the yard around the corner. Oh shit, that was half the price.
It's a fair way of looking for things, you know.
Totally.
Whether it be assets, even flatmates, houses.
Yes.
Everything.
Yeah. No, it's tremendous. No, it's made a huge contribution, I think, to New Zealand.
This is a bit of an out there question, but the next 7 months you're going to be running around on the road. What do you do to keep fit, healthy? Do you just follow a special diet, meditation?
Not really. Stress.
Beers?
I find stress.
Yeah? Is there wine
keeps
or?
me thin. Yeah, I drink at night. That's why you'll find on Twitter and Facebook, as the night wears on, I get more and more belligerent. But in the morning, it's the best time to get me if you want a reason response, if you want to wind me up.
So, call you a good
10
time
o'clock. Yeah. I'm always better in the first part of the day. But no, Joanne's incredibly, fit. She's a mountaineer, so she does serious stuff, and I get dragged by her along. Come on, gotta go.
Sure, special meal prep for you, carbs, scroggin, all that carry on.
I think if we're talking diet, our diet today is a hell of a lot better than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
We just eat far better food. We just eat, a lot of whole food now. Eat a fraction of the meat and the milk and the cheese that we ever ate. Bread's gone. So, and that's just education. That's just as we've learned about this stuff. And most of the members of the family are good athletes. Sam's a good athlete. His sisters are really good athletes. So I'm living in this bloody household with all these Energizer bunnies. It's hard to get a good fatty food.
Gareth, you're a father, you're successful in your own right, and you have successful kids. What's your approach to fatherhood? I mean, what kind of father are you? Like, do you spend time with them? You know, how did you foster such?
I love spending time with the kids.
Were you strict with them, or?
Incredibly proud of all 4 of our kids. We just think they're wonderful. And we've got a heap of grandkids now. They're so good, grandkids. So much better than kids. I don't know how to get to one without the other, but it's just because you have no responsibility, so you can just play up and be really naughty and do all the things with them that their parents hate, like take them to McDonald's, that sort of thing,
So they end up favouring you opposed to dad or mum?
Oh yeah,
they want to hang out for you.
That's the whole game, right? But I think with kids, I mean, you just support your kids no matter what they do. So they know you're always there for them. You're never judgmental. You might say, that's nice, dear, which is code for idiot. But you don't try to make carbon copies of some ideal formula that you want. I mean, Sam dropped out of university. He says to me, Dad, they're all wankers. I said, Sam, that's a bit sweeping, And he said, no, but what I mean, they're all just learning according to a formula. It's pathetic.
Yeah.
He's just like his mother, so he had to just go and start something himself.
Did you tell him to go back to uni, or
No.
you're making a big decision?
No.
So you're very supportive.
Absolutely, I didn't do that. Because if I'd done that, my wife would have killed me. My parents would have done that to me. Said, no, you're going, wouldn't forgive me. That's not the way to stay close to your kids.
So you don't have to be a strict parent to produce.
No, you have to be an inspiring parent. I believe you have to be. To be crude about it, you have to outfox the little buggers, right? Not have a formula of discipline on them. I think that just alienates you. That's what breaks up families, Whereas you want to stay mates with your kids, so you need to support them, and when they go and do things that don't go so well, you just, what do we, what's next on the agenda sort of thing. I think that's the way to do it. Because the world also is changing so fast. So what worked for you won't necessarily work for... I mean, look at this business with degrees now. I mean, there's a whole lot of evidence now that these degrees are actually a waste of time. That you're better to have lifetime learning. So rather than cram all your education in at the start of your adulthood and say, right, you're free to go now. No, don't do that. Give them a bit of it so they can get a rung on the ladder. But make available for them more right through their working lives so they can come back and access that system. I think the universities and all that have got a lot of work to do on that. So, it wasn't like that when I went through, but I think that's coming down really fast.
Would you go all Bernie Sanders and give free education, or is that...
Well, definitely free education for primary and secondary, totally, and I don't agree with... I don't like private schools, I can tell you now. I think everybody should have the same access, and I like basically schools to be a mixture of students from right across the whole socio-economic ethnic thing. I think it's critical for a tolerant society and an understanding. So I don't like the sort of thing I've seen in New Zealand, some economics, which is, my hometown, Pataru, where they all now get on buses, all the guys with money, and they go to St. Peter's and bloody Cambridge or St. Paul's or wherever, and all that's left in Pataru are the poor ones. And, that's not good because they don't have the better role models. The school doesn't have parents with money. So everything just goes into a spiral. So, I would want to go back to the future on that one.
I think you enjoy the view, right? I think you enjoy looking out the window. And we get to hear your true opinions, It's stimulates ideas.
Lets your mind go,
yeah.
Well, I think, it's been
amazing.
It's been great, and just you sharing honestly and openly. I mean, this is stuff that sometimes when you're a big studio or another presenter.
Yeah, you got a huge crew.
It doesn't.
And it's all dark. After the spotlight, you're sweating.
But in saying that, we would like to probably have into you after a few wines, maybe late at night.
We're going to try and get Jeff next week. We've asked him whether he's keen.
You should get Jeff.
We're going to go down to Piha and grab him.
Yeah. He's a bright guy, eh?
Well, he's working with you.
He's really knowledgeable.
Yeah.
He's a joy to work with. We're very different.
Really?
Oh yeah. He's far more. In a lot of ways, he's more conservative than me. I don't mean in terms of his economics or anything, but just in terms of, I'm a bit of a risk taker with. He would never have done the Peters thing, the Uncle Tom. He'd never do that.
Yeah.
But you know, I said, well, how do I get people to actually bloody listen to this?
No, you had to. Yeah.
That's what you do, and then you just go through this. I did the same with cats, you know. I opened cats up by going, cats to go. Oh, Christ, you must have killed all the cats. No, which wasn't what I was saying at all, but it got their attention, didn't it?
Definitely.
And then we had the, debate, and now it's all happening. All the councils are bringing this in now. Cat bylaws.
There you go.
In Wellington, we've got Snip and Chip, and
So you've already actually implemented some.
and then being a politician.
Yeah.
So to start strong,
just
right?
practice.
You can make a mind, yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, so, yeah, we'll see. But for this stuff, I need New Zealanders to back me. And if they're not up to it, well, it's all right. Back to the beach, Gareth.
Waitangi's going to be a good start. Well, that's the thing. And like you said, you can just go off into the sunset afterwards. But Waitangi's going to be a big weekend. You know, how long have you got up on the stage? How long?
Oh, I think they give us about 10 minutes on that Teddy Marae. But I've been there before.
Yeah, it's not your first rodeo, right?
It's not my first thing at Waitangi, but of course this is the first time I've been to Waitangi since sticking the knife into Winston. Who's their local member?
Is he going to be there?
Eh?
Vince is going to be there?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
He'll be there. He'll be in the same row. Well, I mean, when I took him on, he was sitting right there.
What's it like when you do get up in front of it? Does he turn on for the cameras and then become another person?
Yes.
Or is he always the same person?
No, he's a chameleon. Completely turns it on for the cameras.
So he's nice to you, and then when the cameras
No,
turn
he's
on,
not nice to me.
Oh,
He's
it's
not
the way
nice to
around.
any other politician. He sits there, dude. He doesn't engage. And then he gets on there and the blossom opens,
So
where he goes.
who gets to meet the real
amazing.
Winston? No one.
Well, I guess his own party, I wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah.
But he's pretty famous for it actually, in TV and all the rest, but he always demands a different dressing room, he never mixes in the green room and stuff like that. But, everybody's different, so I'm not criticising it, I'm just saying that's Winston.
He's very like sort of brash, bulky, sort of almost intimidating. His character, isn't it?
Totally.
It's not very welcoming or relaxed as what we would be today.
But he is a popular guy, though. He is,
Hugely popular, and I've spoken to some of the Maori leaders, who are all for what I'm doing. I think it's bloody awesome. But they say, Winston's a bloody pain in the ass. And then they'll say, but all my bloody aunties vote for him.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Oh, they love that smile. They just melt.
He doesn't want
He's
to
a
be on
heartthrob.
TV. Yeah.
He's a heartthrob. So if you're into personality politics, well, there you go.
I did enjoy that exchange. I did enjoy that. I thought it was, it's going to start from there, right? That's just the melting point. It's just
I think though, we're going to see how not intelligent, but how well they respond to these logical ideas.
Because that's by far the bulk of what
Exactly.
we're doing. Is all that stuff.
It's not
This thing's
crazy.
just
It's not radical even. It's just logical policies for the well-being of New Zealand. And who else is putting anything else? Who else is even doing anything similar?
Nowhere near it.
What are the Greens doing?
The Greens have done a little bit. They do a little bit out to the side, but the Greens have sort of kneecapped themselves by saying they won't work with National. And I said to them after the last election, I said, surely that's illogical. If you're really, environment, sustainability is really your key platform, wouldn't you just work with whoever's going to do it for you? Oh yes, but National will never do it because they're into economic growth. And I said, so the real agenda here is you don't like economic growth. So you don't like people's incomes to go up. And they said, well, you can't have both. That's garbage. Of course you can have both. You can have businesses that are environmentally, sustainable and that grow and deliver you your income. Of course you can have both. Now you might say we've got too many smelters, too many, big industry, smokestack type industries. But all that means is we've got to change from those sort of industries to new types of industries that are more, environmentally friendly. But they don't get there. They say, no, growth is the opposite of environmental. And I said, no, it's not. You cannot go to people and say, we want you to take less income next year and the year after and the year What do you really think you're selling here? Unless you can get rid of that, it's just an irrelevancy. So, but some of that stuff, like on the environment, we're not too different on the environment. Purely environmental arguments. We're not.
Yeah, well, like you were saying before, and
I can be more radical than them.
yeah, well, they didn't want to accept one thing.
Well, the
that
one
you
on the
had
cows.
cows. Yeah.
I said, oh, dairying's easy. How you deal with dairying? You say, right, in this catchment, there's so much allowed per hectare of nitrogen leakage. Right? This is what we're, and then next year or in 5 years it's going to be that amount, and we're just going to phase it down to bugger all. Right. So this year it's this amount. So every farm that's up here, they get pinged. They get pinged with a tax. Every farm that's down here, below that, they get that money. So there's no money leaves the system. You just reward the good boys and you hurt the bad boys.
So even if someone is overproducing, getting more, they get stung in the revenue.
Polluter pays.
But then it
The
goes back
polluter
to the
has
guy
to
not
pay.
making as much.
Yeah, it doesn't go to you. It doesn't go anywhere. It's closed.
Cycle, isn't
So
it?
it just goes into the guy. So this guy then talks to this one over the fence and says, how do you do that? How much money are you making? And the word spreads, doesn't it? I'm actually making more than you are.
Well, yeah, the guy at the bottom would be making the same as the top at the time,
That's
right?
right.
It's getting all recycled.
So, and then I said to them, so that's what you do. But there'll be some catchments, because I know this from the Environmental Commission and that, some catchments have just got too many bloody cows, that the technology is not good enough to get you down to this level. So that way, we'll use the same technique, but what will end up in that catchment is there'll just be fewer cows. And the Greens came out and said, we can't possibly afford to have fewer cows. Where did that come from?
Yeah.
And so they said, they're just trying to differentiate themselves. I said, well, I'm going to make them look like bananas. I'll write a column on that.
I'm really looking forward to this next 7 months.
So it's all fun, eh?
And looking forward to the coverage next weekend. I'm sure, all the major media outlets will be there. And
We're at Waitangi.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I go up there today, so yeah. That's tomorrow we will talk, all the bodies. And then doors in service the next morning. And
Big
then
day for you. And did you stay there that night?
2 nights, tonight, tomorrow
Yeah.
night.
And then come back. I'll fly
And I'm
back.
here because on Tuesday we launch our Democracy Reset.
Oh,
Getting
so
the young people to vote, that's what we
TVZ.
launch on.
Yeah, tell the people where they can follow your policies and Facebook or on
Yeah,
your website.
so we've got a website, obviously it's top.org.nz, on Facebook as well, either my site, Gareth Morgan, or the top site itself. But on top.org.nz are all the policies. So the whole 7 are there, mind you, 4 of them haven't been unveiled yet. But the first 3 have, so you just click on it and there it is.
Yep.
And you can read as much as you are up for, to get the policy. So the details all there. And then you just engage with us. And as long as when you engage on that social media, as long as you're civil, that's my philosophy, to the point, you got a question or want to make a point, make it succinctly. If you do all those things, I don't care what your view is, you will be treated with respect. But if you're not civil, you will get it back with interest.
Oh,
I'm not a passive sort of guy, and if it's after 10 at night, it'll be
after the wine's been cracked.
And then we have a 3 strikes and you're gone.
Fair enough.
So what happens to trolls is they just get flushed. Eventually, I give them try. I said that was strike 2.
Yeah.
Try harder. And then they come back and was absolutely raging. You can't do this. You can't. I said, it's my channel, buddy. Just go set up your own if you want to. That's how it works. It's good.
That's fair though. It's your channel. You're doing this in your own time. Why do you have to put up that sort of BS?
No. So you don't. But most people are pretty good. I'm looking forward to going on the road, eh?
It's it's going to get very hectic the next 7 months.
Yeah,
your Twitter handle? What's your name on Twitter? Are you using Twitter?
Gareth NZ.
Gareth NZ, cool.
Yeah, that's Twitter.
Facebook. No Instagram?
No.
Snapchat?
Ask Jeff about all that stuff.
He'll
He'll know all that.
Yeah.
He's
Cheaper
a
stuff,
lot
right?
younger than me.
Yeah.
He's the same age as Sam, so
Yeah, we'll ask him some of those questions.
So
Because obviously Trump's very vocal on his Twitter.
yeah, and I am too on Facebook.
So these sort of things are a great way for you to express yourself unfiltered.
It is unfiltered. It's totally unfiltered. Did you see what Gareth Morgan just said? That's unbelievable. You know, but it is unfiltered.
And it's going to be a lot
I've
more.
had all these corporate PR firms come and say, you need an image makeover. I thought, what do you mean, like Andrew? Take the glasses off and get the fluffy hair.
What'd you say?
And then I say, piss off. I've been in this business 40 years. I'm dealing with the public. I know exactly what I'm doing.
Do the other politicians have PR people looking after them?
PR corporate.
Definitely,
Yes,
yeah.
Totally. They all go to training school. And
Tomorrow you suit and boot up, or just tea and
no, I wear what I just
shoes?
wore in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always.
No
like this.
blusher or mascara or anything like that?
No, I only blush when I'm embarrassed.
Oh mate. No, we've enjoyed it today. I mean,
Thank you very
I hope
much.
you have too.
Yeah, no, good fun.
Thank you very, very much.
Appreciate
Appreciate
it.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.